Even now to this day, people think I'm the porter. I go see patients, and people be like, "Oh, no, 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 like, patient's already gone for the X-ray." And I'm like, "I know, I've seen the X-ray. I'm the surgeon. I came to see the patient." So, so these are like, if my daughter says, "Oh, I came second," I'll smile, but okay, well done. Who came first? And you know that line our parents have. The person who came first, did they have two heads? No, they didn't. So why didn't you come first? Like, stats show that actually, if you look at African children from immigrant families, their attainment is actually a lot higher.
On that note, would you say it's more difficult for black kids to get to like higher heights in their career?
Um, yes, it's more difficult because
I don't know about you, but for this year 2023, I have made some career goals, okay, as a nurse and as a content creator. This year, I want to explore my creative side. I want to become my own boss. I want to be financially stable. I want to upgrade on the skills that I have, and I want to learn new skills to help me in this career or this field that I am in. And that is why I have decided to make Skillshare my best friend this year. And amazingly, Skillshare is sponsoring today's video. So Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who wants to learn a new skill or to explore their creativity. Maybe you also have personal career goals. Maybe you want to launch a new merchandise, start earning some passive income through Etsy or Shopify. Maybe you want to learn a new skill or upgrade an existing skill that you can monetize and start making some money from it. Whatever it is that you want to learn, whatever skill that it is you want to upgrade, I'm here to recommend Skillshare for you. The person that made me discover Skillshare was Ali Abdal. He's this popular YouTuber. He has millions of subscribers, and he first spoke about Skillshare, and then from that time I have been on that platform. He had this link that gave me free access to the platform for over a month, and I fell in love with the platform. Funny enough, Skillshare decided to collaborate with me as well. I am taking a class on how to edit my YouTube videos. I'm taking this class from Ali Abdal, who's one of my favorite YouTubers, and I'm loving it, guys. The things I'm learning. So recently I just learned how Ali Abdal does his handwritten things on the screen. I always used to wonder how, but I just discovered how he does it through his online class on video editing in Final Cut Pro. And guys, I am learning a lot. So first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial access to Skillshare, okay? Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video.
Hi, people. Today I have this hot chocolate of a doctor here. He's called Dr. Jude. I'm sure most of you may have seen his channel before. He's a YouTuber as well, and he's a surgeon, right? Today, I am really interested in how he made it, growing up as a black boy in London or in the UK, and, any tips that he has for us as immigrants or as blacks. Because Dr. Jude, most of my viewers are immigrants in the UK, because myself, I migrated from Ghana just about 4 years ago to the UK. So my channel is more about, educating people about, how they can relocate, especially health professionals, So my audience are usually like immigrants, people that are already in the UK or those that are looking to relocate. We're happy to have you here, Dr. Jude. It's such an honor to have you.
Thank you.
I love your channel. I love your channel. I've been a subscriber for over a year. I think I discovered it during the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, that's when I was posting most.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. No, my only issue is you're not consistent, but I understand that you're very busy.
Life's busy as a surgeon, People always say that to me. They say, "Doc, we need more content." But the reality is that I am actually operating it like most days and seeing patients and in clinic. So that's number one. And the creative stuff was the hobby that I actually did more during the pandemic because I had more time. That's when I picked up the camera and did more. But obviously now we've picked up, so we're busy again. But we are expanding. So we're going to try and get some editors and things and hopefully tell stories.
Yeah. So can you just briefly tell us a bit about yourself? For those who don't know you, just briefly.
So I'm a trauma and orthopedic surgeon. I'm based in London. I grew up here, so I am from the East London, but I was born to immigrant parents as well. So my parents moved over in the 80s. It was, the same challenges that many of my of us are familiar with, growing up. But despite that, I had a lot of support from my dad, so I managed to go to a pretty good secondary school. They pushed me. I went to university in the UK. I went to University of Manchester. I got straight into medical school. And then I trained in London pretty much the whole time. I had a brief stint. I went to the States. I thought I might want to be a doctor there, so I went to Yale and did an internship, which was wonderful. And then I even spent a year in Canada, which is when you might have discovered my channel. That was when I was posting more. I did some trauma. I got a lot of experience seeing patients with like complex upper limb injuries. So I really went for the experience, but also to try the country. Anyway, and now I'm back in London. So that's a brief summary.
Wow. So, were you born here, or you were born in Nigeria and then you relocated with your family?
Yeah, so that's interesting. My mother was pregnant when she moved to the UK.
Okay.
So she literally moved to the UK to have me,
Okay.
and she was a student, so we didn't have much. And I remember the first few years of my life, we were based in the UK, but we were back and forth between like UK and Nigeria before we like finally settled in the UK. So I was born in London and grew up here.
I watched one of your videos and you said your father was a taxi driver as well as a student when he was here.
Yeah.
So if he was schooling, that means he is like well educated, right? And then you just mentioned your mommy was schooling as well. So you have like well educated,
exactly.
would you say?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, my dad loves studying. Even at his old age, he's still asking me what that he wants to go and study. He wants to understand the fintech business a bit more. In his 60s now, I'm asking him, Dad, why do you want to study this?
Okay.
But so yeah, he's got many degrees. He's actually called Jude as well, and that's where my channel comes from because everybody calls him Dr. Jude. And some of his friends call him Oxford because the boy loved to study.
Wow.
But he came, as you saw in that video, which where I detailed a little bit of my stories. He came with my mom when they were expecting me. They didn't have much. My dad was driving taxis at night and going to school during the day. That's how they paid their way.
Wow.
And yeah, we thank God because it all came good in the end.
Do you think you were influenced by them in any way? Yeah.
I mean, I was heavily influenced by my father for sure because my dad's work ethic was like no other. And it wasn't just his work ethic, it was his like unyielding belief in himself. Like he didn't have it. He unfortunately didn't have his father. His father died when he was very young. So even when he came to the UK as a young man, he financed that himself, financed school, his family. He set up his business eventually when he became an accountant. And he'll tell you his stories, and I can listen forever because really this was in the 80s and the 90s where actually being a black professional was even more challenging than it is now. Yeah. And so what he taught me was really about really believing in yourself and not taking no for an answer and doing whatever has to be done to accomplish your goal. Once you have your eyes set on your goal, no matter what it is, you break it down into smaller actionable steps and you just put one foot in front of the other rather than looking at the finish line. Just put one foot in front of the other and you can make your dreams a reality, which is basically the concept of that video that you talked about.
So would you say you're successful?
No, I don't feel successful at all.
Wow.
And I think success is subjective because I have always set goals and I've always had something that I'm chasing after. And I think that over the last few years, the goalposts have changed a lot for me. I think for me, success has so many parameters. But now that I am actually a father, for me, I want to see a time in my life where I'm actually going to have more time to spend with my kids, to teach them, to nurture them, to show, to hopefully impart the same kind of lessons that my parents gave to me, to help them become stable, grounded, wise adults. And I recognize that even my dad has called me a workaholic. He says, son, you work too much, because when I'm not working, I'm in my office, I'm writing, I'm editing, I'm shooting, I'm doing so many other things as well as surgery. And so for me, I think success is when you manage to find balance. I think that I haven't arrived in a place in my life yet where I say I'm successful. And I'm still only at the beginning of my career as well. Despite all of that training, I'm still literally, I've barely touched the surface of what is possible. So we're still hustling at the moment. So I don't think I'm successful yet.
But you agree that most people looking at you would say you are very successful. You agree?
I mean, I don't know. It depends what your measure of success is.
You have a good job. You have a beautiful family. You're doing well. You know, you've accomplished your dreams. You know, sort of like you growing up. You said you wanted to, you know, be a doctor. You've been able to do that. And, you know, being a doctor is a big deal. And you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think you'll find many people who will feel that they are successful. Like, it's subjective. I know a lot from the outside. Lots of people will tell other people that they look successful, but if you speak to most successful people, they will not tell you that that's how they feel. And I definitely don't. I'm nobody really in the world of surgery or in the world of what could potentially be. I know there's so much more to do, and I do find it personally a little bit not worrying, but it's concerning when you see somebody who gets complacent because of previous successes, and then before you know it, things can just change in a flash. So I definitely don't feel successful. So
I hear you, but we see you as successful anyways. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
so growing up, the whole journey to becoming a surgeon, how was it like?
It was hard. Um,
Me as a young black boy.
yeah,
Yeah.
particularly. Well, growing up in the UK probably made it slightly easier because I did see that we have a lot of doctors who come from maybe India or Africa, and there's a culture which you need to understand. So there obviously it's partly academic and partly completely objective, but actually progress in this career and many other careers is subjective. There's a what do they call it? It's the unwritten curriculum. If
Okay.
you understand what I mean. So there's a manner in which you need to behave and talk and stuff, and so that can be the most challenging thing when you feel slightly different. I think that for me that was the hardest thing. I always worked hard for exams and recruitment processes. I studied, and I always would come inside at least the top 10%, top 5%. And I
Wow.
would often surprise my trainers. They would always be surprised. They'd be like, "Oh, how did you?" I'm like, "You're surprised. I'm not surprised because I knew how much work I put in. Also, I knew that there's absolutely no way that I can go into this and be average. It's just not possible." So I always said I was very hard on myself in training. So I always made sure that I gave 150% and came in the top wherever I could when it was objective. Subjectively, that's a bit harder. So I would say I had a very good time in training. I can't lie, but it was long. It's expensive. Um, you need to find mentors who support you, and again, as I said, I think finding mentors who understand your challenge coming from our background could be a bit difficult, slightly challenging. People that don't necessarily understand, your issues. We have, I mean, I'm sure we have, what do we call it? It's called black tax. So when you're working, so that you can help your mum with her bills, or your relative out in Nigeria is in school, but they don't have money for school fees, and you're receiving phone calls, and so there's so much more that we have to contend with. So it was challenging, but
Were you the only black in your class, or were you like
um,
medical school and then, when you were upgrading?
so when I went to medical school, there were a few other black students. I was definitely the only, but we were definitely a minority, like a handful of us in the whole medical school. And then the issue is, the further you go, the less and less you see minorities. Like the further up you go, and even the statistics will show you that. Like even if you look at the NHS statistics, I think especially in London, like I think it's about 45% are a black and minority nurses and doctors. But when you go up to the executive level, it becomes like 1% or like less than 1%. And I mean, I would have to look at the numbers again, but so the progress in your career is what is often very difficult. And if you look at, again, I touched on this on a recent video, which I talked about why a lot of doctors and nurses are leaving the NHS. But if you look at a lot of the NHS surveys, the results, and you look at the trust surveys, there isn't a trust in the country that doesn't have problems with racism, bullying. At least people are reporting that, and people are saying that they feel that their career is not progressing based on prejudice.
Yeah.
And so, even if people want to say, "Oh, it doesn't exist," I've never seen it. I mean, people are reporting it, so we know that exists. So,
And did you
it's
face that
challenging.
in any aspect of your
Um,
education or in your career? If you're being honest
yeah,
with
of
yourself,
course,
you look like
of
a
course,
positive person. You look like someone who will not really dwell on that. And
of
usually
course.
men don't like to dwell on those things, but would you say?
Yeah. Do you know, it's difficult because if somebody is treating you differently, it's hard to put it down to prejudice. You know, But I have had instances in my career where the the reception was different, and it was different to everybody. Like I had an instance where I was with a colleague who himself was white, and he felt compelled to apologize to me because of somebody else's behavior. And so in that instance, it isn't just in your head. Yeah, people you
Yes.
have never met, they treat you differently. And what often happens to me still to this day, and I don't necessarily uh, argue or find this offensive, but it happens still regularly, even as a consultant. As I'll go to an area of the hospital, maybe where I'm not known. Sometimes I'm known, like I will go to see my patients preoperatively. And there was an instance actually, I went and I left my bag in the little office where the computer station, and I went to see the patients. I came back. I tried to go into the office to grab my bag, and the nurse stands at the door. Says, "Excuse me, who are you?"
Mhm.
And somebody said, "Oh, no, he's one of the consultants. He's one of the consultants." She was, "Oh, sorry." Like, go. So definitely, I find like the reception isn't always positive initially, and like even now to this day, people think I'm the porter. I go see patients, and people be like, "Oh, no, like patient's already gone for the X-ray," and I'm like, "I know, I've seen the X-ray. I'm the surgeon. I came to see the patient." So, so these are like
Oh,
unconscious biases that you see play out, and a lot of people may not recognize them. So, as I said, they don't offend me really, but I still see it being a consultant who maybe looks slightly younger, maybe slightly different looking, and obviously black. You definitely like. There's certain nuances in my day that you can see, but I try to not let it affect me. And as you said, I try and stay positive about it and educate where I can.
wow, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that should not even be like that in London because there are lots of blacks in London. I am in Northern Ireland, Belfast. So if you were here, I guess it would have been worse. Because even in this day and age, the number of blacks here very, very small in
yeah. I
Belfast.
mean,
So in London, where there are so many blacks, and then you expect some of these things not to be like that. But
as I said,
sadly,
I don't think it's I don't know what to call it, to be honest. I like to believe it's just an unconscious bias because they're just used to seeing your typical male white middle class surgeon. So that's typically what they're used to seeing. So when they see something that's slightly different, it sometimes just takes a while to reconfigure. And actually, the beauty about surgery and medicine, I think, anyway, at the moment, is that it is changing. And one of the reasons I remember all those years ago, I decided to go to medical school is because I wanted a career where my progress would be based on my ability, my commitment, my skill, rather than who I know and where I went to school and what I look like, as is still in some sectors. And it is still a little bit like that in medicine, but to a degree, as I said, it's changing. We've got more females in surgery. We have more black and minority surgeons. We have hopefully more people reaching executive management positions so they can actually affect change as well. So, you know, let's dwell on the future.
on that note, would you say it's more difficult for black kids to get to like higher heights in their career?
Um, yes, it's more difficult because the statistics show that. The statistics show that attainment of black children in schools educationally is lower, and it's complex. The exact reason for that, and I'm not going to pretend to be somebody who understands that or knows. I do try to do my bit. Like I do talk in secondary schools, and I do attend some careers events, and I also help with work experience for all students, so regardless of color. But I try to make myself available so that there's that point of contact, because I think one of the most challenging issues for black children who are trying to become what they haven't seen is that they don't know anybody.
And there's
And so
no
one of the yeah, exactly, they don't know anybody to ask these questions, and one of the prerequisites for even getting into medical school is getting work experience with a doctor, or at least in a hospital, and that can be a stumbling block for many people because they don't know who to ask or how to organize that. And if
bad.
you're middle class, then you have a family friend who's a doctor who will take you under. And I'm regularly have students who come and spend time with us, and people will write to me to say, "Oh, do you mind if this person comes?" And so usually it's when somebody knows somebody. So we're trying to make that more level. So where I work at the moment, I've actually created a work experience program so anybody can apply to it. We try to make that open and advertise it to local schools
Wow.
so they can send their pupils to come and spend time with us. So that's one of the challenges. But as you know, like as I said, the school system at the moment is massively unbalanced. But there is a caveat to that, and the stats show that actually, if you look at African children from immigrant families, their attainment is actually a lot higher. So actually, if you put black children all in one category, it actually looks low. And the exact reason for that is I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know, but I coming from that family, as in I came from an immigrant family, African family, and I can tell you, and as I'm sure you know, the emphasis that we put on education. You know, our parents
Education. Yeah.
see that as a way out of poverty. I was always told by my
Exactly.
dad that this is a way to change your life. Yeah, that isn't based on who you know or how whether you can play football. As in, you go to school, study, get a degree, get a good job, work hard, change your life. I know that the world is a different place to what it was 20 years ago. So we have children who didn't go to school,
But there's still something.
creating.
There's still an iota of that, like that still exists, and it's with all immigrants as well. Even Asian immigrants as well would push their kids to study hard because they think that they have to break the status quo. You know, like you
Exactly.
hear Ali Abdal say that a lot. That there was so much emphasis on go to school. Get a good job, blah blah blah. And with the locals, there's no pressure like that. And I think that pressure also kind of helps us. So Dr. Jude, in this day and age, if I want my black child to do well, to become like you, what advice would you give to me as a parent?
I mean, I am a parent to a black boy and a black girl, and I do think about this all the time. And I think that where the difference is made, at least in my life and a lot of my friends who are quote unquote successful life, I think that the underlying similarity is commitment from our parents. So
Okay.
it doesn't matter what you do. I think whether you are reading regularly with your children, you need to get them excited about education. Like my
Oh,
daughter
yes.
loves, even she's only 6 years old, but she loves reading. She loves writing. She loves maths. We turn everything into a game. She doesn't realize that she's learning. And so I think that you can't just send your kids to school and expect the education system to educate your children to that level. So I think we need to be focused, but at the same time, I don't want to put too much pressure on her as well, um, because I don't know what success is going to be in 20 years time. Yeah, like the jobs that probably pay you the most money, give you the most flexibility and freedom, the ability to work from home, and several perks. Those jobs today didn't exist 20 years ago when my parents were advising me, right?
Social
As in, you
media
could
influencing.
you could become CEO of Facebook, Hulu, yeah. Or you could work in tech. You'd be 25 and you're earning $250,000 a year and you're working from home. Who knew? I didn't know that. My parents didn't know that. So I'm not gonna like be really strict with my kids in terms of forcing them to go to medical school, but I will just encourage them to just to enjoy learning and just and that's probably what all we can do. To be honest, the world is changing so quickly.
So, with your daughter, knowing how busy you are as a surgeon, what exactly did you do to make her love reading?
Oh man, if I'm honest with you, that really is my wife. I have to tell you, she's a school teacher, so we're lucky in that regard because she understands, and you don't have to be a teacher to do this. I think if you're committed, but she understands the curriculum, she understands where she needs to be in terms of her level of reading, her level of arithmetic. She understands how to make it fun. So actually, my wife has almost naturally created this intrigue in her, and so if I'm honest, she is the one who's asking to read with me, and I should be more proactive. But she'll come into the office, Daddy, can I read this book with you? And often I'm so busy, but I'll try and make time. I remind myself, look, we're going to sit down and let's read. Or she'll ask me, Daddy, can we do this quick maths? I'm like, yeah, let's do some quick maths. So um, I don't think you necessarily have to be a teacher, but yeah, we have to find ways to encourage them and get them excited. So
You see, the problem with immigrants is sometimes we are doing double shifts, just to make money. We have to take money home. There's
yeah,
no time. And it's difficult. Like you said, you can't just send the kids to school and expect them to do what you have to also commit and then do something when they're in the house. And that's where the challenge is because we are just focused on, like working, working, working. And most people might not have the time. What do you think?
I mean, that's the exact situation I am in. I struggle. I'm working like most days, and then even when I come back, the work follows you home. I don't know if you're a content creator, so you know even when you finish your shift, you come back home, you're writing, planning, networking, editing, doing something, right? Always doing something. Whether it's your main hustle and your side hustle, everybody has a side hustle now, right? But I still think it's key to find time to do it, even if it's just 20 minutes, like every other day, because they will always remember that. Even now, yeah, the surgeries, I do some amazing surgeries, and I make some amazing differences to people's lives. And I've managed to travel the world and see eminent surgeons doing amazing things, like honestly saving lives, changing lives. But I'll never, ever, ever forget reading with my dad or doing the math that I hated. I hated it, but my dad would like, no, son, stick with it. And and I think the key, at least the key for me, was that he told me that I was capable. He told me that I was good, even despite me not feeling that. And so because he told me I was good at maths, so I went to school thinking I was good at maths. So nobody could tell me otherwise because my dad had already told me that, oh son, you know you're good at maths. That makes you enjoy it more. Or tell me, oh, you're really good at reading. You write a story. Tell me this story is amazing. You know, and you could critique them, but also encourage them. And so that helped me really believe in myself. So that's one thing I think you can do.
I think that's one thing we all have to learn. Yeah, because most like the typical African parent might not be like that. So your
Yeah,
dad,
that's true.
will close to him.
I mean, my dad
Yeah.
was quite strict when it came to studying because I remember he would set problems. Okay, you need to do this by before I come back. He'll buy the books and it's okay. This is what I want you to study before I come back. And then, he'll come back and sometimes I've done it all wrong. He'll tell me, this son, this is wrong, and he'll tell me like, I expect more because you can do more. And one time, and I'm sure there's every African child has had this experience. I never forget. I can't remember what class I was in, but I was in primary school, so I was really young. And we had it was called the London Reading Test. I don't know, they probably don't do it anymore. This is ancient, but everybody had to read, I think, and write. It was a basic exam. And I remember I scored like 79% or something. I can't remember, but the achievement for me was I came second in the class.
Wow.
And this is before I felt intelligent. I didn't. I just teachers treat you like you're a troublemaker. I had a lot of energy, but anyway, I came second in the class. And so I remember telling my dad, and my dad said, "What second, son? Why didn't you come first?" And I said, "What?" Like I remember, I never forget being devastated. I was, I don't know how old I was, 8 or 9 maybe. I was like, "I came second though. I should be happy with that." And I know now, being a parent, I know that he was happy that I came second, but he didn't
Yeah.
want to show it.
Yeah. I
So
love your dad.
I know, huh?
I love your
Yeah.
dad. Yeah.
So
I
I
like
know
his.
that he was happy. Yeah, exactly. So it's difficult for us to do that now with soft parenting, but like I think if my daughter says, "Oh, I came second," I'll smile, but okay, well done. Who came first? And you know that line our parents love. The person who came first, did they have two heads? No, they didn't. So why didn't you come first? Type thing, you know? So anyway, I won't probably not be that harsh, but yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
we can do.
And I think it did help. And then you saying that your father did not grow up with his father, I'm just wondering where he learned all these things from. Because as little or as minor as they seem, I'm sure it's what helped shape you to become who you are now.
Well, look, man, I'm saying my dad did a lot for me, but he wasn't perfect, and he, I didn't grow up being especially close to my dad until I was maybe an adult. So I think that um, it's difficult now because now we want to be liked by our children. We want to be friends with our children, whereas our parents didn't really care about being liked, shall we say? So yeah, I love my dad for everything he did, and it wasn't until I became a father that I forgave him for all the things that I thought he didn't do. You know, so I would be that kid. I was very talented in sports as well, in rugby, football, cricket, athletics, basketball. I was in every sports team that I could play, and but my dad was barely at my games, and for a long time I was like you didn't come to hardly any of my games, and it used to bother me. But when I became a parent, I realized this adult life is difficult.
It's tough.
Yeah, so you have to forgive. You have to forgive our parents. Well, I do anyway. I forgave him when I realized that it's hard. It's hard to raise children, and I only have two. My dad raised five, so yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
work.
Like you said, like these kids, I don't know, but I think that kids that were born here or are schooling here, you're a bit so emotional. Like if a kid back in Ghana will not mind that the father did not show up for the game or whatever, like you don't care. I feel like, and then it's even more serious now because, like you said, it's like we want our kids to love us now. So it's a bit tough. But what
Yeah,
would
it's a
you
different world now. So
what would your final words be for a young boy watching you that wants to get to the heights that you have gotten to, and your final words for immigrants that want to be able to raise their kids well, especially now that there's this notion that black kids they are likely to enter into gangs and all that stuff. How do we break free from all those things and then make sure that
I mean,
our kids are well? Like your final words.
you raise so many issues there, and that does terrify me. So you know, keeping your our children on the straight and narrow nowadays is complex. You have to battle social media and so many external pressures to be cool and to fit in, and even there's so many more mental health issues amongst children as well that we have to be concerned about. But um, in terms of young people, there's a saying that I love that actually helped me get this far, and I think it's from the book of Proverbs, and I may have paraphrased it, but there's a um, there's a saying that says, "Whatsoever a man thinketh, so is he." And to me, I took that to mean that whatever you think you are is what you are. So don't allow the world to create you. You create yourself. And by that I mean if you want to be a surgeon, let's say you want to be a musician, and for some reason you feel like you're not capable, or your teacher's telling you that you're not talented, or someone's telling you don't have what it takes, you have the ability to change that. Whatever you think of is what you are. So if you tell yourself you are a musician, you need to get down and put in those hours, do that work, and you become a musician. You want to be a surgeon, you can be it. You can do that. Whatever it is that you want to do, you can be that person. And I think it comes down to overwhelming, unyielding belief in yourself and a commitment to doing whatever it takes. And that's all.
Wow. Well said. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're going to work, and hopefully we can
Yeah.
do this again sometime. Thank
Thank
you so.
you. It's been fun.
I'll leave Dr. G's social media handles in the description, and I'll leave a screenshot of how his channel looks like on the screen so you can have a look. Thank you so much. I'm sure I'll revisit this video a couple of times. So thank you so much.
No problem. My pleasure. Speak to you
Bye.
soon.